Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to explore how AI is revolutionizing the personal injury space. And by the end of this webinar, you're going to better understand a little bit about AI prompting, AI customization, and an introduction into bot creation, and ultimately, how you can create an emotionally compelling pain and suffering narrative in just a few minutes. Now, a little bit about me. I'm James Grant. I'm one of the founding partners of Georgia Trial Attorneys. We're in the business of helping other personal injury lawyers make more money faster and with less stress by serving as their outsourced litigation department. My business partner, Mark Kirchen, and I, we absolutely love technology. And I'm a Georgia Tech grad, so you know I'm a nerd. And my business partner, Mark, he's like the king of the nerds, an absolute super nerd. So together, when we combine that, we are all about redefining the traditional practice of law through technological innovations. We want to create a space where technology leads the way and justice is swift. So I'm really anxious to go over with you guys all this AI technology and help you implement it into your law firm. And if this is new to you, or even if you're an advanced user, this session is absolutely for you. And at the same time, if you're overwhelmed at the idea of implementing all this technology with your litigation cases and you're looking for a reliable solution, stick around. But more on that later. So before we really dive into things, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. This session is going to be approximately 45 minutes. I'm really going to try to stick to that timeline because I know everybody's time is precious. At the end of the presentation and the live demo, we're also going to have probably a 5 to 10 minute Q&A session. So either start writing down your questions now or put them into the chat so we can get to them later. And at the same time, don't worry if you have to step away, if a phone call comes in, a client comes in, or you just end up missing something. This entire session is going to be recorded, and at the end, in the next couple days, I'll be sending out the presentation, the slides, the recording, everything so you can review it at your leisure. And really, with that, let's get started and let's get into it. And briefly, we're just going to do a very basic fundamental review of what AI is and what AI is not. At the end of the day, AI is an abbreviation. It stands for artificial intelligence. It's a computer system that performs tasks that previously required human intelligence, such as understanding natural language, recognizing patterns, even making decisions. And before we really go any further, I really want to address one of the big misconceptions that's out there, and that misconception is AI is not your enemy. We are not living in a world where AI is going to lead to the creation of Skynet, and all of a sudden we're going to have these time traveling robots that travel back into the past to kill members of the resistance along with half the population. That's not what AI is. But on the flip side, AI, in at least my opinion, is a significant industry disruptor that's really going to elevate your business and take you to the next level, or it's going to leave you in the dust and leave you behind. And it all depends on whether you adopt AI into your business. And even for those that do adopt it, do you take that implementation far enough? Because when we're talking about artificial intelligence and automation and all this stuff, this is probably more transformative for business than the advent of the internet back in the 90s. And what we're seeing right now, this is just the beginning. And so when you look at it, AI is going to seem like this mysterious black box, but it's not a black box. It's not magic. It's a tool. And just with any tool, it requires skillful use. So that's what I want to accomplish today is showing you how to begin to understand becoming a better user of AI. Because like I said, this stuff is not magic, but when you really start playing with it, it's totally going to seem like magic. Now, at the end of the day, why should you as a lawyer care about AI? What's in it for you? And the simple response is time. Time is our most valuable and limited resource. It's one of the few things we can't really go get more of. And AI helps us reclaim so much time. It makes us so much more efficient, which then has a cascade effect for us, for our employees, and then our clients as well. And this is just the tip of the iceberg because yes, AI can, automate and help offload a lot of these, boring tasks like sorting documents and, drafting simple letters and, even crafting, as we're going to be discussing today, compelling medical or not medical, but demand narratives. But at the same time, AI can do super cool stuff. It can sift through medical records. It can go through court filings, and then it can help you strengthen your case. But even better, you can use a lot of data analytics to help identify trends and patterns. This is identifying trends and behaviors of insurance adjusters, insurance companies generally. You can also look even more finely at judges, defense attorneys, how staff attorneys respond. As long as you have enough data to then compile and review a response, the AI is going to help you fill in a lot of the gaps of what you think versus what the data actually says. And this is going to be something that's going to help businesses all across the globe. And what if you could do all of this stuff in seconds? Well, this is what I wanted to help you do. I wanted to help you elevate your practice, to improve your client service, and to build stronger cases, all through integrating AI. And really the question of, is this an option? That's not a question anymore. This is essential. This is what we have to do to stay at least current, because it's changing all the time. Now, there are so many different options when it comes to platforms out there as far as AI, but I'm going to give you my top picks for this month. And I say this month because this stuff is constantly changing. Most people are familiar with ChatGPT, which is the logo and icon we have on the left of the screen. It's the predominant platform that I'm going to be using today. However, there are so many other options that are out there, and people like to have options. I like options. The second option over here is Poe.com. It's very similar to GPT, and they're the same subscription price. And really, when we're talking about AI platforms and subscriptions, you got to have the $20 subscription. Don't just use the pay or the free version. Use the paid version. You're going to get so much more functionality, and it's going to be so much better. But with GPT, with Poe, there's different functionalities, there's different benefits, there's different risks. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but the main focus today is going to be on GPT. But I at least wanted to give you some exposure to what else is out there with Poe, and we'll talk a little bit of that more during our live demo. So now let's really turn to the demand phase. Drafting demand letters is a time-consuming process. Either it's something that just sucks a lot of time and overhead, or it's a line item on your budget that's being outsourced to either another company or another series of offshore workers, however you want to structure it. But either way, it's time-consuming and it's expensive. And you've also got to strike this right balance. You got to have this balance between legal jargon, assertiveness, factual recitation, storytelling, and professionalism. You're really supposed to be telling the story of what happened to your client and what they went through. But even when we ask our clients to write down what happened to them, they're not the best storytellers. And even us as lawyers, we're not award-winning storytellers. We're not award-winning writers. So many times it's hard for us as lawyers and paralegals and our staff to then step out of the case and into the shoes of our client to write from their perspective. But imagine a world where AI can do all of this for you, and it can do it really fast. That's the benefit of this natural language processing of AI, because what it can do, it can translate complex medical records and other data and then put it into plain language. And when you're looking at all this, you're having AI analyze so much data. You can do other things like these 4 demand letters that I've sent recently were really successful and we had great results. So use these as a template, as a base. All of a sudden now you're building information within AI to show it what works for you and your style and your cases. The cool thing about AI is that it can also gauge the emotional weight of specific words and phrases and sections. And as what we're going to do with today's session, AI is going to help you step into your client's shoes to use that emotion, to use that as your advantage, and not just have a demand letter be a factual recitation. And by inputting these key factors, by helping AI craft the narrative, it's really going to help your story, your client's story, resonate. Because at the end of the day, you have medical bills, you have treatment, you have modalities, diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment. Those are objective things. Those have value. But it's my opinion that the subjective, that has so much more value, and you can't just convey it in 1 or 2 words. You can't just say, oh, my client struggled with this or struggled with that or couldn't do this. You really have to tell the story and paint a picture. And that's where AI helps so much in conveying the pain and suffering that your client endured without you having to be a literary genius. And by incorporating these into these AI things, these AI bots, these customizations, these tools, and adapting this technology, you're really embracing the evolution of either the legal industry or business at large. Now, when we're really talking about crafting a pain and suffering narrative, the language that we use is so important because I want us to think of it as, how am I going to present this to the 12 random strangers that could be sitting in the box if this case goes to a trial? And yeah, sure, juries need concrete and hard evidence. They need to know what the facts are. They need to see the medical bills, the medical records, have expert testimony, pictures, and video. But those don't necessarily paint the whole picture. They don't seal the deal. Juries generally don't award large verdicts based solely on the facts and data. Those larger verdicts are driven by emotion because the jury in their mind was compelled to believe that a large verdict was the only thing that they could do to balance the harms that were inflicted. And that's where AI really helps and comes in, because it's more than just sifting through records and analyzing data. It's assessing the emotional weight of words and phrases and channeling a perspective and attitude and stance that you direct. So, like I said, not every lawyer is a great novelist and a poet, but with AI, you can craft these narratives with an emotional depth that was only reserved for the best of the best. So AI becomes your narrative co-pilot. It helps you can tell, it helps you tell these stories that resonate with random strangers, which again is what you're looking at with your jury and hopefully tipping the scales in your favor. So it's more than a tool, it is definitely a strategic asset. So now let's pull up our sleeves a little bit and move from the why to the how. That's why we're all here at the end of the day, is to understand what we need to do from an objective standpoint. How do we accomplish using AI and doing with AI? So first thing that we need to understand is that all AI platforms, whether you're talking Poe, GPT, all of them are blank canvases. They're only as good as the artist that's wielding the brush. So if you give an AI a vague or simple prompt, and a prompt is the directions that you put into the chat window. If you give it something simple, it's going to give you a simple response back. If you give it something more insightful, more in depth, if you give it more information to base a decision on, it's going to help. So that's where, prompting, it's so important. And an idea that is important for at least new users. We're going to talk about how this transitions in the live portion of our demo, but it's really important to focus, at least initially, to understand AI, the idea of your prompts having a role, a task, and a format. The role is the AI's assigned persona. So you can, think of it of a number of things depending on what you're prompting AI about. It could be an HR director, it could be a marketing guru, it could be a legal writer that's specializing in personal injury, kind of like we're going to be focusing on today. So you're setting the role for the AI to adopt. Then the next thing you want to give it is you want to give it a task. What is the specific request? What are you asking it to do? Are you asking it to draft a demand letter? And we'll see how that is such an oversimplification, because there's so much that really goes into a demand letter. You think of the example of, in elementary school, kids tell their teacher how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Well, the teacher ends up sticking their hand in the peanut butter and jelly jars because no one ever said to use a knife. AI is the exact same way. You have to give it a lot of information and direction, or else it's just going to have to make assumptions. And sometimes those assumptions can work, sometimes not. And lastly, we have to discuss the format or the output, how you want to receive the response from the AI. Do you want a list? Do you want a table? Do you want a step-by-step guide? Do you just want a narrative statement? So with that, again, role, task, and format, at least for the basic understanding that we're discussing today, that's where we want to start, and then that'll evolve as we get through the demo. And again, like I said, I'll show this, we'll go over it a little bit more. Now, next, let's talk about some real big time game changers. AI customization and bots. helps you so much. These are effectively what I call productivity multipliers. You know, AI again only knows about you what you tell it. And within a lot of these AI platforms, you have the ability to tell it, this is who I am, this is how I want you to respond. So you can preset specific information about the user and then your preferred response format. So now you're streamlining every single interaction with the AI. You don't have to just have the same prompt saved and you have a whole window of all different prompts. So if I use this prompt for this and I use this prompt for that, no, you can build in all of that and you don't have to necessarily copy and paste every single time. That also ties into with the bot creation. You can have different bots that do and focus on different things. And then when it comes to these specific customization instructions and detailed instructions, you can have it maybe as a demand writer. Maybe you want it to channel the inner personas of a combination of Harvey Specter, Gary Vee, and Seth Godin. So you're giving it direction on who to write and how to write, which again, this is all a sales pitch in the context of what we're talking today. So you want to have the in theory, whoever's writing it to be a really good writer. And those are probably pretty three good people that everyone knows that at least can tell stories and do it in an emotionally compelling way. So, because we have to realize this is a sales tool. With all of this, with all this preset instructions and emotional language, we're trying to sell the adjuster. We're trying to convince them to give us as much money as possible for whatever claim we're handling. And the more we tell the AI in our preset instructions about this, the more it understands every time what our goal is. And really, there's a number of ways this can go. We're going to go over my preset instructions, and I'll show that as we get to the demo. But we have to realize also that every single interaction with AI is housed in a chat. Again, we're going to show this in the demo, but I'm at least giving you a preview to understand before we get to the demo. And every chat is, again, like I said before, it's a blank canvas. The AI can reference all your prior conversations in a chat up to a certain limit, but we're not going to go over all of that. And within your chats, you want to make sure that you are keeping everything together. If you're mixing stuff like marketing, sales, legal research, you're going to muddy the waters because the AI is referencing so many different things. So you want to be able to organize your chats. I'll show you how I organize some of mine, and we'll be able to show you in the live demo exactly where they are, how it works, and you can see it from the very beginning. And really with that, I think that's for the most part of what we're going to do from a preliminary standpoint. So now it's our chance to really move into the live demo section of today. So what we're going to do is we're going to transition over from this screen and we're going to get straight to GPT. All right. So here we have ChatGPT. You can look up in the URL, it's chat.openai.com. And what we have here is this is what you see when anyone logs in. You're going to see a little bit different. If you have the paid version, you're going to see that you have ChatGPT Plus. Now, as we're getting started with our screen share, I first want to work backwards from what we talked about just a minute ago. So let's first talk about the chat window. The chat window is here where my mouse is on the screen, on the left-hand side of the screen. So what this is doing is this is housing all your different chats, and you can kind of see you can rename every chat. ChatGPT will also rename it for you if you let it. And for instance, I have discussions on marketing, but it's not just general marketing for this one. When I'm building certain web pages, when I'm doing videos, we do have a general marketing. We have a sales chat. So again, you're narrowing the focus of your discussions with the AI. So you limit it and not just give it a whole bunch of information to go steer after. Next thing we're going to go over is we're going to review, prompting. Prompting is super important. And in the PowerPoint presentation that's going to be coming out, it's going to have all of these prompts in here. I'm not going to read every single prompt to you, but I just want to show you how prompting can really progress. And sometimes it can get too complicated. But what we're going to start off with here, we're going to start off just a super basic prompt. We're just going to ask it to write us a demand letter for a rear end collision where there's ER, Chiro, MRI, or an orthopedic, and you've got $60,000 in bills. Once you put that in the chat and we start going with it, you know, you're going to get information. You don't have a lot of information. And also it's always going to tell you you probably want to consult with a lawyer because again, it doesn't know who you are. This first stuff, it's assuming it's writing a complete letter because we didn't tell it that we just wanted one part. We just wanted the demand letter, and it's going to start. Now, I'm not going to let us watch this entire iteration of how it's going to create this narrative, but you can see that like it's pretty cool. It's fast. It's just building this from scratch. And we didn't really give it a whole lot of information. So I'm going to stop this prompt and we're going to try again. I'm going to get rid of this chat because again, I don't want to bias it with prior information. One other thing I forgot that I want to go over is you have these windows here in the top of the screen. You've got GPT 3.5, which is the free version, and then you've got GPT-4. I could probably do a whole nother web session on just describing what's going on here from the default version, accessing the internet with Bing, the advanced data and analysis, especially plugins and DALL-E. The instruction that I will give you is most of the time I'm using the advanced data analysis. Most of the time I feel like that's the best just from a general search standpoint. But also if you're giving it lots of information as far as other URLs and you want it to crawl the web, obviously you're going to want to use, browse with Bing. We can talk more about this later. So if you have questions, even if you want to throw some questions into the chat, we can talk about that. But we're going to leave it on the advanced data analysis for now. So we just did an ultra basic prompt. Now we're going to do what I would call a basic prompt. You got more information. Still, you don't have to scroll to read the prompt that we're looking at, but now we're giving a little bit more direction. We're using some of that role, task, and format. We're at least saying that I want you to act as a legal writer with expertise in the personal injury field, and that you're writing just the pain and suffering narrative for a client who went through all of these things. Now, you can see that once we start this, it cuts a lot of things out. It's going to go straight. It's still doing the letter, but you're going to start getting more information. It's going to be a more complete story because, again, you have provided the AI with so much more information. Again, we're not going to watch this entire iteration. Again, you're going to have the prompts where you can do it yourself to see what it starts to build. But again, this is still what I would call a basic response. So we'll stop this. Now we're going to move up to still, this is going to seem like a lot. I would still call what you're going to see next a simple prompt. This is significantly longer. This is a lot more information. We're still following a lot of the role, task, and format, but we're providing a ton of information here, or at least what most would call a ton of information. You're giving very specific and detailed information about how the wreck happened, where they went, what the diagnoses were, what the effects on their life were. Well, in theory, because you provide more, you're going to get more. But at the end of the day, I would argue that this is still a simple prompt. So let's see what we get here. Again, we're going through the same hurdles of you're getting a letter that's effectively being built from scratch. And it's not necessarily what we wanted. But again, we're going to let it go through. It's going to provide, and I'll wait for it to at least get to the narrative section so you can see kind of how it is going to come out. And again, we're seeing it now start telling a story. Well, you've got your factual section, you've got your medical treatment and your expenses. But we're still at the place where this is simple. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to stop generating. We're going to delete this. And now we're going to talk about the next thing moving backwards. First, we were talking about chats, we were talking about prompts. Now we're going to talk about custom instructions. Custom instructions are really where these AI platforms thrive and shine so much. I'm going to insert my custom instructions. And again, you're probably going to have a lot of questions about how it's set up, and I'll do my best. I don't want to talk a lot about it. It's just get you exposed to it and let you play with it on your own. But within ChatGPT, you go down to the bottom of your screen, the bottom left, and you're going to see your name. And you're going to see these three dots. You click the three dots, and you have the ability to look at custom instructions and set your own. You're going to get this window, and you're going to have the ability to say, information about you. What do you want the AI to know about you so that it can provide a better response to you? And then in the second window, how would you like ChatGPT to respond? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to copy my information. Now, I've listed everything out with an exclamation point. I won't go into the details, but every new line that you're providing to the AI, at least in this context, as far as new information, start with an exclamation point and the subject, and then provide the information. So in this instance, exclamation point location. I want it to know that I'm in Atlanta in the metro area. My profession, again, seeing and telling AI that I've been licensed since 2011. I've been an entrepreneur. I've licensed to practice law and personal injury. There's a lot that goes in, and there's a lot of information that's here. Expertise, special conditions, family life, personas, dislikes, format, goals, research, how I want it to, again, go to the internet and access other sources. This is a lot of information directing, which again will be in the PowerPoint slides, and you can see so that you can look at it and adopt it for your own perspective. That's just what I want AI to know about me. Well, next, we're going to go over how would I like ChatGPT to respond. This is where it does get very complicated. This is still a basic version, but when you give it this hashtag # of pre-instructions, you're telling it, hey, I want you to provide this information before doing any analysis or providing me any information in the prompt window. When you provide these asterisks, you want it to say, hey, state the objective, and clearly state what the objective, state the expert role. This is where things get different. Earlier, we talked about role, task, and format. When you are first starting to use AI, it's a good idea to at least play with it and assign different roles to see how it takes different perspectives based on the information that you are providing. But as you progress in your AI journey and as you start using these custom instructions, you really just want the AI to pick. And then based on it telling you, because you're telling it, say, show me which expert role you picked, then you can adjust in the conversation. If it picked a role you don't want, then you can reassign it. So that way you get the benefit of letting the AI work for you as opposed to pigeonhole and saying you have to take this perspective when there may be another that's out there. You go to other things as far as assumptions, because there are a lot of assumptions. We don't always give the full complete story in our prompt. So again, when the AI is telling you what assumptions that it's making, you can change those assumptions as you're going through the AI conversation, because it's never just one chat. It's always a conversation back and forth. I have some information here about confidence score. 0 to 1 is a confidence score, 1 being the highest. Anything that's under 7, you want it to warn you or explain if it's making up stuff. Because again, we don't want to be like the attorney that was in New York that had AI make up a bunch of cases, filed a brief. That's problematic. We don't want that to happen. So again, using a confidence score helps with that. And then there are a lot of other detailed instructions in here about how I want responses. I think you can probably interpret those, but I also don't want to spend minutes and minutes and minutes when we only have 45 minutes today. So again, if you have more questions, if you want another webinar just on this, let me know. I'll be more than happy to go through it. So we're going to save these as our custom instructions, and then we're actually going to go back. We're going to go back to the prompts that we just did, and we're going to see how it's different. I'm going to start off with just the ultra basic prompt. That very, very simple, we have a rear end collision with some medical bills totaling $60,000 and some treatment. Now we're going to see the prompt that we receive is so much different. We're having it state the objective. We're having it tell us what the expert role was. And then we're having it state all of its assumptions. These assumptions are super important because now I can review as we go through the conversation with the AI after I review its entire response to see, well, yes, this is true. No, this is not. Maybe I needed to provide more information early on. And then also I see its confidence score of being at a 1. So with it, you have a whole lot more functionality because number one, the AI knows who you are based on your custom instructions, and it also knows how you want it to respond. So when it comes to this interaction of going back and forth, you can see that there's more information. There's more that's going to be able to help you. You're going to be able to better interact with the AI. Again, I'm going to let the whole thing go, but I'll stop generating. But that gives you at least a basic understanding, and it's almost done at this point, but that gives you a basic understanding of how custom instructions really are going to help you in your interactions with AI. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look very, very briefly at Poe. I'm just going to give you kind of a snapshot tour of this other AI. Just like GPT, you also have Poe now. And Poe is a similar AI platform with similar functionalities, but it is a little different. One of the cool things that you get with Poe is you get access to a lot of different AI platforms. You'll see down here they have official bots. Well, we can look at what's there. You actually have access to GPT, to Claude, to all the different versions of GPT, Llama. These are, this is pretty cool. You can access all this stuff. I like that a lot. And it helps to be able to use different versions of different AIs to ask the same question and have it compare things because they all do things a little bit differently. But even going back, we have popular bots. These are bots that other people have created that you can use just the same. And I mean, some of these, you've got 30,000 people that are watching this bot on how to create photos and prompt AI better, whether it be Midjourney or any of the other AIs that are out there to help you create a picture. There's a lot of cool stuff that you get and a lot more functionality. I'm not going to go through the same process of searching, but to let you know that you can explore a ton of these different AI platforms, but you can also create your own bot as well. And with that, you get a lot of the same level of functionality within your custom instructions as you do with GPT. You have, the bot behavior, the prompt, what base you want to use. There's all these different bases. So you get a lot of the same functionality, whether it's GPT, Poe, or any of the other platforms. You have a lot of this functionality all across the board. I just show you this one to say there are other options that are out there. You aren't limited to GPT if you don't necessarily like GPT. All right, now we're going to go back to GPT, and we're really going to get to the heart of the matter, why everyone is here today. We're really going to talk about how do we create an emotionally compelling pain and suffering narrative. Now, one thing is super, super important is we're going to be going through a process of uploading records and information to the AI. We're going to talk about this in a minute when we get done with the demo, but you have to be very careful with what you are giving the AI access to, especially when it comes to records, bills, police reports, any number of things that you're uploading. You want to be careful. First thing, I really don't like when people use PDFs. Most don't understand, but PDF is an actual image. It's not, you do have text, but as far as the file format is viewed, it's an image. Images don't necessarily translate well when you're talking about uploading it to an AI platform. So I always recommend that you first convert things to a Word document. That way you can at least have better functionality a majority of the time. And we'll probably go through a scenario here in a minute, and I'll show you where sometimes that doesn't work, and it's better to actually use your notepad and just have a text file. because again, the AI is only going to be able to interpret your text. So when you're uploading those documents into the system, make sure you're using the file structure that's important. Then, when it comes to what is on those documents, you need to sanitize these documents. You don't need to be uploading personally identifiable information about your clients into an AI system. So that means things like name, date of birth, address, phone number, social security number, any number of things that's personally identifiable to your client. You can go through and you can scrub that out. And it's really simple. If you convert it to a Word document, if you convert it to a text document, you can do a find replace. For name, you can get rid of the name, or you can come up with, Jane Doe or John Doe. You can substitute a date of birth. Maybe it's just January 1st of the year that we're talking about, so that way at least the AI is building a narrative based upon the proper age of the person that we're talking about. Other things, as far as their address, their phone number, you don't really need those. So if you do a find replace, you can just replace it with nothing or a blank cell. The more you go through and do that and refine and scrape and scrub your data, again, you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your clients. That way, it's just clean data, and it's effectively an anonymous individual that we're dealing with. Now, what we're going to be doing in my example is I've already gone through that process. I'm not going to show you because, again, I don't want to take up extra time just watching me scrub through and do find replace. I've already pulled the data up here. And what we're going to do is in GPT, we're going to click the plus sign here in the prompt window, and we're going to ask it to attach files. So we're going to go to our docs. I'm going to select all of them. And for this example, I'm going to actually upload the police report. I know the police report's not going to work, but I want to show you what you would get. So we're going to attach our documents. And then we're going to run this prompt. Now, the prompt that I'm using, again, it's going to be in the presentation, so you'll be able to access and see it. No need to have to worry about writing it down or taking a screen grab. It'll all be there. But very basic, I'm just asking it to, identify key information within all 5 of these documents. And I'm giving it very specific parameters as far as what I'm looking for in all of those documents. And I also make sure that the names of the files match, so that way it knows. AI is pretty intuitive, but you want to give it clear instructions. So you don't want to say chiropractic records when it's chiro records in the file names. It may be a little bit off, and it may search the wrong document. So try to make sure there's some consistency there. And now we're just going to send that message, and we're going to let the AI do its thing. My custom instructions are still present, so it's still going to give me the objective. It's going to give me the expert role, and then it's going to list out any assumptions, and then we're going to actually get to the response, because it's going to have to process and it's going to have to review. You're going to see this, the little spinny thing that it's working. So what that's doing is it's going through all of those documents and it's pulling the information so that it can now give us a complete response. All right. See, this is great. Everything didn't export necessarily the way we wanted to. I told you that was going to happen because the police report, it didn't really work. It didn't turn out well. So I had already converted that into a TXT file. So we'll cancel this out. You don't always have to start with a new window, but I'm just starting with a new window to let you know that you can run this and it's going to have no pre-existing information other than my custom instructions, and see how it works. All right, so we're going to have our chiro records, our narrative that our client drafted, and our text file of our police report. And now we see it's working. Again, going through the same process, listing out the objective, role, assumptions. Then it's going to start with analyzing the data. This will take some time. Unfortunately, this is just a boring process. Sometimes we just have to sit there and wait, let the AI do its thing. But these suckers are really fast, and it can process a lot of documents. Even if you're talking about, a giant deposition transcript, it can still process all that. And it may be a few minutes, but again, That's a lot of data analytics that you're getting in a very short amount of time. And then, depending on the prompts that you can get a whole lot of great stuff back from it. Rather than having to sit there and reread information, you can have the AI even pull a summary for you. So it's telling me, yep, the documents have been successfully read, and now it's going to proceed. So then it's giving us what it feels are the key points. This is just, again, this is the tip of the iceberg. You can refine your instructions so much more. Generally, my prompts are a little bit more detailed, but again, the purpose of this is to expose you to show how you can interact with the AI and how you can let it work for you so that it can pull certain information from documents without you having to figure that out yourself and read it yourself. You can tell the AI to do it for you. Now, it's still doing some work. It's doing a detailed analysis. Sometimes it does this, sometimes it doesn't. So we're going to wait around and see what we get back. But one thing I want to make very clear is there is no magic prompt. There is nothing that says that if you put all of these words in this giant 3-page document into an AI prompt, you're going to get the perfect set of information. You have to limit the information that you're giving the AI to an extent. You have to treat it like a conversation. What that means is understanding that I'm going to start off with one prompt and then I'm going to interact with the AI in a series of other prompts to get more information and tell it what I want in the way that I want it. So this is the start of the conversation to build our pain and suffering narrative. This isn't the final version because, again, we're just getting key points and key items. What I'm going to do next is I'll go ahead and paste this in there while it's working. You while you're interacting with the AI, you don't want to prompt it. You don't want to hit enter on this while it's still giving you a response. If you do that, you're going to stop generating a response, and that's at least going to mess up the information that you're receiving because the AI didn't finish doing what it was supposed to do. But you can see here, we're going now to step 2. Step 2 of our process is we want you to draft an optimized narrative based on our client's pain and suffering. And again, using a similar format, sometimes this happens. So what we had here, we have a network error. So we're just going to regenerate the response. Now, the tough part about this is what we face with AI. AI is finicky and sometimes it times out, also depending on usage. Depending on how many people are using that particular platform, you may be in a place where you're just stuck waiting, or you have to, redo your prompt. That's what we had today. And again, for sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and tell it to do the second part. We're almost at our 45-minute mark, so we're going to have to push through real quick to get to our Q&A. So I'm going to stop it. I'm going to ask it to draft now an optimized narrative. Again, you can do this yourself on your time, and it's going to then focus even more. So with our objective, our role, our assumptions, it's going to work even further to provide us that narrative. One thing I will recommend is, now we're in a place where it's probably going to have to revisit all of the data, but let's just give it a few minutes and see what it does. I've already prepared a series of prompts because I've interacted with this before. And I had 1, 2, 3, 4, I had 5 prompts to get a final version of the pain and suffering narrative. And in the email that's going to be coming out with the presentation, you'll get all of those 5 prompts. The first prompt, I'm not going to run it because it's still running, it's doing its thing. But once it gives me a response, it's generally a good place to start, is just ask it simply, say, tell me more. Well, here, we've got it drafting. We're gonna let it do its thing. It may not be too long. Also, I didn't give it any instructions on length. So generally it's probably going to start off fairly short. So we'll let it go through the medical consequences. And again, it's effectively, building the story of your case. It's not using compelling language, at least yet, but you've got a lot of important information here in just a matter of seconds. All right, and this is the additional instructions that I put in my custom instructions to provide a little bit more information. Also, list any references that I can look at. Also, suggest any websites to view as well. Again, good part of having your custom instructions. So it's going to ask you. You want me to modify anything? Reading through, well, just simply, hey, tell me more. And when it gets through with that, have another prompt of elaborate more on the pain and suffering aspect. Focus on what the client complained of, what they told their doctors, how it affected her, how it affect another person generally. And then this is where it's important. You want it to use active voice. You can have it be very verbose. You can have it be somewhere in the middle, like I chose. You can have it be not verbose at all, but focus high on emotions and logic. Again, this is giving a lot more information and direction to the AI because, again, this is a conversation based upon what it's given you and what you've received. So with that, we're already to the end of that. So I'm going to ask it to focus on the pain and suffering. Then I already know how it was going to respond. So the final prompt I had was that, well, I like everything that you've done thus far, but I want to redo the liability section. I want to focus on the rules of the road, and I want you to make a public safety argument at the beginning. Also, I want you to cite the particular code sections, and then as you're doing that, I want you to check your references. And again, as we're waiting for it, because it's giving us more information, it's giving more detail, it takes a little bit longer to respond. But that in and of the conversation is how we prompt AI. It's not a one-stop shop. It's not a magic pill when it comes to the secret prompt. It's always a series of prompts that are out there to get you to the eventual solution. But one thing that I want everybody to hear when it comes to AI is if you ever get stuck, ask it the question. Ask it where you're struggling. Tell it, well, I'm stuck here, but I need help. What questions can I answer? What additional information can I provide? It's just like you're interacting with somebody in your office. If you're interacting with a paralegal, an attorney, a marketing vendor, any number of people that you're interacting with, just have that conversation of asking, hey, I need help. And the AI will provide you so much more information to, again, allow you to interact with it better. It's going to be really, really good at that. And here, what we're looking at now is, we're looking at the final product. This is what we've received when we put everything together. You've got to focus on the liability section. You've got you've got your strong narrative on how the wreck affected your client's life. And the AI is even telling you that's pretty good with a confidence score of 1. You can refine it, go back and forth, and focus on a different tone, a different style of voice, a different persona. There's so many different ways this can go, but this live demo section should give you a clear understanding of how you can better act with AI by leveraging your custom instructions, chatting with it the right way, understanding it's a conversation, and then asking it questions when you get stuck. All right, so we're going to go now to, and we'll scroll through. We'll see that, the prompts that we were talking about earlier. We have our basic prompts. We have the custom instructions that I used. We have the chats that or not the chats, but the different prompts that I used to get this final pain and suffering narrative. Now we're going to turn into something that's really important for our industry at large. Is that's it for the demo, but like we really have to look at ethics and legal considerations. Client confidentiality, it's very, very important. And you have to make sure that you're being careful when it comes to client confidentiality, like we talked about. You always need to sanitize your data. You always have to remove the personally identifiable information. The address, name, phone number, date of birth, social security number. Things that anybody can say, "Oh, I know this person based on this information that's here." You want to preserve your client's confidentiality. And then, as the slide shows, I've got a couple tips when it comes to, first, you've got to have quality control. You always need to understand that the AI is generating it, but you got to check the sources. You have to make revisions. You also have to train your team to ensure that they know and are familiar with the AI, its capabilities, and how to use it. Understand that human judgment trumps all, and especially from an ethical and judgment standpoint, AI can't do that. Always rely on your judgment. And then at the end of the day, update your computer, update your software, update your technology, because there's different features, security patches, all sorts of stuff that comes out. So when it comes to this AI stuff, make sure you're using the most up to date. Next, we're going to go over, some questions. A lot of people, they may be excited, but you may be overwhelmed. You don't have to be overwhelmed at the idea of doing all of this. I'm here to help you simplify things, because again, my job is to help other personal injury lawyers make more money faster and with less stress by serving as their outsourced litigation department. And we've successfully incorporated AI and other proprietary technologies into our litigation process. We handle cases on a small variety of, from $5,000 in medical bills up to $250,000 in medical bills. We don't handle giant 6, 7, 8-figure cases. That's not in our wheelhouse. But our job is to manage and to optimize the complex grunt work of these smaller cases so that you as a lawyer can focus on what you're good at, which a lot of time is maximizing recovery in pre-litigation cases and going and getting even more cases with your marketing system. And by outsourcing litigation, you're not just offloading work, you're freeing up your time and your resources. And this allows you to implement these cutting edge AI tools in your pre-litigation cases, which ramps up your efficiency, increases your productivity and your effectiveness across the board. Just as an example, over the last few months, our referral partners have referred us cases with offers that totaled about $1 million. And that's about a $367,000 fee, which isn't bad, but we took those same cases and litigated them and settled them and resolved them for $3.5 million. So that's a $700,000 fee, even after splitting fees. So doubling your money without any overhead, without any out-of-pocket cost, without any worries and any added stress. So, if you're ready to turn your stress into success, you can visit our website and schedule a free strategy session with me. And for those of you that are in the Atlanta area, we can make it a little bit more personal. I'll come out to you, I'll take you out to lunch, and we can also discuss how AI can revolutionize your business and your practice. And now we get to the point that some of you have been waiting for, is the chance to, ask the questions that you've been dying to ask. I'm opening up the Q&A session. So, if you've got a chat, if you've got information, if you've got a question or a quote or something you want to go over, we'll spend we've got just a few minutes to keep it under an hour. So, but we'll start off and I'll sort through the questions that I have here and we'll see what we got. All right. So I see now, apparently there was a portion where I wasn't screen sharing. So I do apologize for that. That's one of those deals that, well, I'll have to go back and I'll shoot another video. I'll put that in there. I'll figure out where I left off and I'll definitely upload that part. So while we're doing that, I'll go back really quick. So instead of maybe Q&A, we'll look at the final prompt. All right, so here we are, final prompt. So what I did, so we're going to upload our records, our MRI, our ortho, the pain and suffering narrative that our client created, and our text file of our police report because the police report didn't work. So we're going to upload those documents. And I copy in our prompt, the prompt that's already there. So what this does is now this is running. You'll see what I was talking about earlier. I apologize for messing that switch up. I switched from one screen to the other and forgot to do it. Um, but yeah, you're getting now your role, your objective, your assumptions. And then, as I said, you see it start spinning. You know that it's spinning, you know that it's working. So you're seeing it put the information in there. The next prompt that I would input is, and again, this is just the prompt that I use. I started off with one so that it knows that this is a series of instructions as well. The first prompt was I wanted it to identify all this information. Once I had it identified, I also told it where to focus. Let's focus on key points, damage descriptions for the police reports, statements that were made by drivers. When it comes to records, and you have to be very careful here because if you tell it to focus on something, it's only going to look for that exact word or that exact phrase. So again, knowing your records very well can help you. If one doctor says objective findings and one doctor says diagnoses or diagnosis or any number of things, you need to make sure that you know that so you can tell the AI, this is what I want you to look for in your instructions over here, because again, that's what it's going to be looking at. This was just a basic version of my prompt that I was able to use to, again, get the idea of how we interact with AI. Then we'll see this is starting to pull out information. And again, a lot of this is not specified because, again, I was using the basic prompt, but it's there to give you the idea. Now we're going to ask it to start drafting the narrative. So now here we've given it more instructions, but to use those key terms, and I've given it, based on using the asterisks, we've got, I want it to write the narrative in this form: an incident summary, the client's personal account, the medical consequences, the emotional impact, and then user highlighted. User highlighted, that's a field where I can incorporate a lot of different things. We can go over that for another time, and then the conclusion section. But you're giving the AI specific instructions. You can build the narrative however you want, or you can just tell it, say, hey, I want you to draft an optimized narrative, and give it some tone and voice of how you want to interact with it. You'll see now that it's pulling in more information. You're getting a lot more that's there. Well, as I had said, this gives me a little bit of information, but I always like this prompt in the conversation of tell me more. I'll go ahead and stop it because it's just doing the final information. So we'll ask it, hey, tell me more. Then we'll go with this next prompt. Elaborate more on the pain and suffering aspect. Focus on what the client complained of, what they told the doctors, how it affected her, how it would affect another person, and then which voice to use. You can also put in here a lot about persona or perspective or attitude or assertiveness. You can give it a lot of information of how to present this. Do you want this to be a demand where you're telling the adjuster you have no choice because you messed up and you need to make a decision and here's why? Or do you want to be a little bit more mild and just tell a flowery story? Again, you have unlimited options when it comes to what you do with the AI and where you point it and where you direct it. And then the last prompt I had was redoing the liability section to focus on the rules of the road, public safety, and the specific code sections that were involved. And then asking it, because like I was saying, we're searching the internet, I want it to check its references. I want to double check to make sure that the information that it's providing is accurate. Now, again, a lawyer's still going to read over this, and generally we're going to know our code sections for the most part, at least we should. But with that, you still want to make sure that the document that you're reviewing is correct for the most part. I won't do this last prompt, or I guess I'll let it run. And are there any other questions that anyone else has that they would like for me to answer in the next few minutes? You can speak now, or forever hold your peace till next time, because apparently there's a request that we do a few more of these webinars on a lot more of the finer points. Um, all right, so Jeremy asked a question of what's the most significant downside to using AI for a personal injury attorney? The only downside that I see is handing over the keys of the kingdom to the AI, of letting AI be the decision maker. AI is not a decision maker, as we were talking about very briefly in our discussion of what AI is and how it's a tool. The tool should never drive your strategy. The tool can help provide you context. The tool can provide a wide base of data, of analytics, but at the end of the day, you as the lawyer have to be in the driver's seat. So it's just understanding that, like I said, it is a tool. And if you use it very well, it's going to help you significantly. But you can't just say, well, I'm going to upload, records. I'm going to upload defendant's motion for summary judgment and draft a response. I'm going to send it off to the court. You could probably get away with it maybe half the time. But again, you want to check it. You want to look at it to make sure, all right, are we cross-referencing these cases to make sure that the cases that it pulled are actual cases? Because again, sometimes AI can hallucinate and it can create its own cases that aren't real. Or are these arguments actually matching? Did the facts that the AI came up with actually match the facts of our case? It's a tool that's going to help you to give you a very strong base, whether it be responding to emails, drafting these narratives, any number of things, but just taking a lot of the initial grunt work. It's always easier to start with a base and then refine, as opposed to having to do everything from scratch. Yes, Tom, there was an initial slide on prompts. I'm going to be sharing that with the recording as well as the slides, so everyone will have access to that. Everyone that was here for the webinar, you'll get all of that in your email. So no worries on that. But if you want to grab a quick screenshot, I can pull that up. We'll go back to our slides. This was the final prompt. If you just want to, look at your keyboard and hit print screen and maybe save that to a Paint document or a Word document, you can at least save the image that way. But this was the final prompt that I used going through the different interactions, as far as starting from the top and then working my way down. And with that, we've come to the point where we've gone a little bit over. I don't like going over. I wanted to stay at 45 minutes. I got a little long there. I messed up that issue on the screen share. So I appreciate you guys bearing with me for that. I just want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for investing your time with me today. I hope that I've given you some actionable tips, because that was the whole purpose of this: is how can you better use AI in your practice? What can you take away that you can work with this afternoon to help AI give you something to work with, as opposed to having to start from everything from scratch? I've already gotten some feedback in the chat. I've gotten some emails here that I've seen pop up as far as new topics. If you have a topic or something that interests you that you want me to focus on in regards to AI and automation, absolutely let me know, and I can set up another webinar. We can do this again. And don't forget to keep a lookout for, number one, for me, for an email coming with all this stuff. And also email me if you have questions. You don't have to just wait for the next webinar. You can direct message me. You can go to our website. It's 8334thewin.com. That's 833 the number 4 thewin.com. You can fill out a form on there. You can schedule a free strategy session. Like I said, if you're in Atlanta, you can schedule a free lunch with me where I'll come out and take you to lunch. And at the end of the day, it's all about us getting better together. We don't have to always be competing with one another. We can always be working together, because the better our profession gets, the better we get, the better our clients get, and the worse these greedy insurance companies get. So with that, I thank you all very much. I hope you guys have a great day, and we'll stay tuned until next time.